Okay, well, good evening. My name is Sander Rodenhuis in Dutch. And I'm one of the founders of Red Kubes, a small startup here in the Netherlands. And we started in 2019. That's already like 2 years ago. When previously we worked at multiple companies in cloud native, cloud, building platforms on top of Kubernetes. And then one day we got an idea to create a kind of product that you could compare to the analogy we often use in Linux, as in a Linux distribution, where Linux, the Linux kernel, or no, that Kubernetes is like the Linux kernel. And when you want to work with Kubernetes, and we've seen that in the previous presentation of Matthias, there is so much tools available in this space. So if you, as Matthias also showed, if you're only looking at the observability section, there's already a lot of tools available. And so you can spend like weeks or months trying out all different kinds of tooling and spending a lot of time on it, probably also doing some integration and trying to configure them the way you want them. That could take a lot of time. Well, anyway, I'm already talking too much. Let's start with my presentation. I tried to limit it to just 4 slides because I thought let's do a little freestyle and focus more on demo and just doing some stuff. So my talk is about Otomi, and Otomi is our open source product. And what we, the last couple of months, we've been really struggling to see what is Otomi, because there's so much, I think, noise within the whole Kubernetes space. We have the big players like OpenShift and now Rancher, SUSE, and they all have like an amazing story on how their products will help you improve productivity and manageability. So our product is just like a super add-on on top of any Kubernetes, with the goal to provide with a single install a complete productivity suite with a lot of apps that you would already regularly use, and we pre-configured them and combined it with a lot of automated self-service tasks, with the goal to make developers self-serving. So they will get an interface, and with a couple of clicks, they can do things that saves them a lot of time, but also lowers the burden on operations, because if you look at Kubernetes and then the day 0 time or day 1 up till the day 2 maintenance activities, you could spend a lot of time on building your own platform on top of Kubernetes. And then I come back to the Linux analogy. So if Kubernetes is only the kernel, then what we see happening now is that everybody is trying to build and maintain their own operating system around Kubernetes. Anyway, let's continue, if my presentation works. So my agenda for this talk is just a short introduction on Otomi, and then we'll do a demo installing Otomi with minimal values. I'll explain a little bit more on what minimal values configuration for Otomi consists of. And we'll probably have some time for a few questions. So what is Otomi? Well, and now I can spend hours on already only trying to explain what Otomi is. So we try to position it as a productivity suite for Kubernetes, with pre-configured applications and automated, a lot of automation also in the back, but self-service features, where the pre-configuration of all the integrated applications, and I hope you can see it, it's on my right, So you'll see Prometheus, Grafana, Loki, Istio. All of these applications are completely pre-configured using same defaults, best practices, but also integrated. And we try to abstract a lot of configuration. So like, for instance, and I'll show that in the demo, like, for instance, Istio. If you want to expose services or put services into your service mesh, then using the self-service features, you can just add that your service to the mesh, and then Automi will configure the ingress of the Istio gateway, create your virtual services, and do everything in the back automatically for you. Everything in Automi is based on configuration as code. So all the applications are pre-configured based on same defaults, but, and I'll also show that in the demo, the configuration of all the applications can be adjusted based on the Automi value structure, or using the raw values of the underlying charts. All of these applications that we integrated are also user and team aware. So we can create teams, like development teams, add users to the teams, and when the user logs in, he will only see what is allowed for him to see within the context of his team. So he can access certain applications. Those applications know, oh, you're part of that team, so you're allowed to do this. Well, I already said something about the automation behind it, also show it in the demo. And of course, Automi, and that's one of the main features, is the self-service task. So we provide like a user interface where you can do advanced configurations with just a couple of clicks. Automi is a single package. So all of these applications are combined into Automi, and you can install Automi in a single run. And I'll show that in a minute. Automi is also completely Kubernetes native. That means that we have abstracted away also the cloud dependency. So you can install Automi with multiple providers. There's a provider for Azure, provider for GCP or AWS, or even on-prem. And based on your provider, it will also abstract away the cloud dependencies. Okay, this is a short demo I prepared. I'm gonna do it in parallel. So I've got two clusters running. One completely clean. I just deployed it, where I will show and demonstrate how to install Automi and how that works with the installer. And then we'll move over to, because the install will take around 10-12 minutes. So during that time, I'll move over to my demo cluster and show how to create a new Knative service combined with using a secret, and make that publicly available, expose it publicly. And then we'll switch back to the new cluster and do some what we call post-installation actions, which we hope to automate also soon. So, but anyway, I'll just show you, because then, if you want, you can try it yourself, and then you know exactly what to do. And then on the new cluster, we'll create a team, because on my demo cluster, I already have a couple of teams, and creating a team also takes like 2 minutes. So let's not spend any time on that. All right. Let's switch over. So I just deployed an AKS cluster in Azure, and with a couple of nodes, two, I think, talking about the nodes, Automi, because we're deploying a whole suite that, of course, requires some resources. So you would probably need a node pool of at least 16 CPU and 32 gigabytes of memory. We're trying to make a new, there's a new release coming out in a couple of months, where we try to lower the footprint and make a lot of applications that are integrated optional, but I'll come back on that later. Okay, I'm gonna install Automi with minimal values. And then I think what you didn't hear is that with minimal values, that means I'm not using any optional configuration, because you can also install Automi with the optional configuration, as in using an external DNS zone, using an external IDP like Azure AD, or encrypt your configuration, sensitive configuration values using SOPs with an external KMS. And are there any others? Let me think. I can come up with the other one. I forgot. So when I'm installing Automi with the minimal values, as you can see here, I'm using the provider Azure, and now Automi will be installed with its own certificate authority. It will use it will take the public IP address of the load balancer and use NIP.io for name resolution. I'm not doing encryption of values, and it will just install everything by default. So to install Automi, you can do it with the chart. And this is easier. I already did the Helm install, or the Helm chart install, and a repo update, of course. And now I'm going to install it on my AKS cluster. And I hope I also didn't. No, I didn't. No, I did say that, but you couldn't hear me. That I'm running it on a node pool with two nodes, but relatively big nodes, because running Automi requires some resources. So you'll need at least like 16 CPU and 32 gigabytes of memory. We're trying to make the footprint, the initial footprint, much lower, and make a lot of applications optional, but that's coming up soon. Okay, so now let's go to the favorite tool of Matthias and see what happens. So here you will see in the default namespace, the Otomi installer started running, and it will now run like for 10 minutes and install Otomi. And when it's done, you can see the URL to access Keycloak, because you first need to create a user account in Keycloak, and the password if you didn't. And I think I did, because yeah, I provided an admin password, because otherwise, if I don't provide an admin password, Automi will generate one, but then I need to copy paste it from the logs. So this will keep on running now. And in the meantime, I'm just going to go back to my demo cluster, which I have here. And so after you install Automi, you first need to create a user account in Keycloak. I'll show that in a minute. So on my demo cluster, I already created a user called Otomi admin with my password. And here you will see the Otomi Console also runs on Kubernetes. And now I have, I'm just going to do it freestyle, but of course I thought of a case I wanted to show you. So let's first go very quickly through the console. So on the enterprise level, you will see all the integrated applications. And when I would go to, like, for instance, Harbor, you can see that Harbor knows I'm the Otomi admin, and I am part of the admin role, so I have the administration options. Well, a lot of applications you will already know. Moving on to the policies, we can also do a short demo on using the policies. So Automi comes with OPA Gatekeeper with a whole set of policies. By default, it's running in non-blocking mode. So you can configure Gatekeeper to run in non-blocking or in blocking, or just turn it off. That's also possible. Then we have the teams section, and here you can create teams. Team is because Otomi by default installs with the multi-tenancy flag on. That means that when I create a team with multi-tenancy on, each team, you can see that here because I can switch between the teams. Each team will get its own Prometheus. It will get a project in Harbor. It will get a space in Vault. And that's all done automatically when I create a team. When I would turn off multi-tenancy, then a team is nothing more than a namespace with network policies, and it will use the central Prometheus. Moving over to the teams. So this is one of the self-service functions of Otomi. We have services, jobs, and secrets. And well, this is the most interesting part. So I'm going to create a service on Otomi. I'll just call it a demo. And as you can see here, the first thing we need to say is, okay, are we going to map an existing Kubernetes service onto Otomi, or an existing Knative service, or do you want to create a new Knative service? And I want to create a new Knative service. And I'm gonna switch over to Harbor because I'm in the team demo and I already pushed an image to this repository that I'm going to deploy now. And let me see here, because then I don't have to type it all over. I'm going to deploy that image by creating a new Knative service. And I think the tag was latest. And don't need to provide that one. You can see there are a lot of things you can configure. Oh, also a secret, but we can add it later on. And now Otomi will ask me, okay, do you want to expose this just locally on the cluster, or expose it privately or public? And I want to make this one public. And I'll just use the defaults because, as you can see here, it will create a host name called demo, the name of the service, then team demo, that's the team name, and within this zone. I can also create or change it and say, no, just call this demo within this zone. I only have one zone available. I can also, if you don't want Otomi to create a certificate and put it on the endpoint, then you can also use your own certificate. But by choosing to make your service public, what will happen in the back is that Otomi will configure the Istio gateway, create your virtual services, do the whole Ingress configuration, create the certificate, do the DNS registration, everything you need to publicly expose your service. And now this is a new feature, and I can also say, okay, this service is also allowed to be accessed by other teams. Well, there's nothing else running in other teams, but here I can say, okay, team A can, and the service of team A can also access this service. But I don't have a good demo to show the network policies, so we'll just say deny traffic from all other team services. So this service is completely isolated and is only made available through the public ingress. And now I'll submit this. Oh, what has gone wrong? Let's do it again. New Knative service. This repository. Latest. make it public. I'll just use the defaults and then what? I'm probably forgetting something here. All right. Also, always when you do a demo, I'll try it again. Am I doing something wrong here? Oh, well, that's not going to work. This is really stupid. Yeah, and now I'm getting a little bit stressed out. Try this one. I don't know what's. Oh, well, I need to go into the back. All right, just give me a second because I need to fix. All right, people. I think I got a little bit stressed out because the mic was off during the session, but now I know what was the issue. So I'll just start over again. Let's create that service now, demo, and we'll create a new Knative service with the hello world. And because I need to provide the limits, of course, and I'll just use the defaults. And we'll make it public. I'll just use the defaults and now submit it. And now I can deploy these changes. And then directly move over to towards the configuration as code, because what I just did is I filled in the form using the console, and now the API will generate the code and put it in Git. So this is the Git repository by default, because I installed it without using an external Git, because you can also use GitHub or GitLab. But by default, we'll use Gitty as the configuration repository. And here you will see that the teams and then services, demo. And what I just did is using the self-service, the API generated this code, and then automatically a pipeline will start running to deploy these changes. So when you install Otomi, you will get the bootstrapped configuration repository, and drone is used to synchronize that new desired state onto the cluster. And the whole integration part with between Gitty and drone, everything here works out of the box, but we'll probably see that when the installer of the other cluster is finished. You can see the pipeline is now ready, and now you will see that the service has an URL. I'm not sure if it already works because, of course, it also created the DNS record for this service. And oh, it already runs. So here you will see it's just very simple application, just saying hello world. Okay, now I need to take a sip of water because I'm completely stressed out because of the mic and stuff didn't work. Let's do something else also to show you the possibilities of Otomi, because I just deployed an image with the latest tag. And in the policies, we have a banned image tags. It's not enabled, but let's enable it and then submit, deploy changes. Because here you will see in the team apps, there's a gatekeeper dashboard. And because, oh, that's another one, I think. In the gatekeeper dashboard, you can, as a team member, see all the policy violations of the applications running within your team. So let's see if that's already done. You see it's going really quickly. It just takes a minute or sometimes 2 minutes, depending on what you're doing. So I'll just move over to like Prometheus, because when we created the service, Otomi also configured. It's not there yet. Okay, I'll move over. I see the screen is a little small. It's still not there. Everything takes a little bit of time. Well, it should show that I'm using the latest tag that is not allowed, because now it should be enabled latest. Okay, I also wanted to do a short demo on using Vault, because I'm logged in as an administrator. What I will do now is I'll log in as a team user. So when you create a team, Autome will automatically create a group in Keycloak, and you can create users and add those users to the group. So I created the user team user that's part of the team demo, and you can see that the team user is only part of the team demo, while there are also other teams. And here the team user can also create services or create jobs. You can create Kubernetes jobs, you can create cron jobs, and you can also create secrets. Secrets, we're using Vault. This is something we still need to optimize, but I can log in into Vault, and here I have only access to the team demo. And here I can create secrets. So I can create a secret called hello, and I'll use target saying And save this one. Okay, I created a secret called hello, and now I can map that secret onto Otomi. Let's see if I did it right. Yeah. And now I can deploy these changes. And now Otomi will synchronize the secret from Vault to a Kubernetes secret that you can use in your deployments. And of course, you can also create a Docker registry, pull secrets or TLS secrets, and also use those TLS certificates on your services. And now let's see if what I wanted to show now works, because when I now go to Gatekeeper, it will show yes, banned image tags is now visible in my team dashboard because I'm not complying to the policy I just enabled. All right, let's switch over to the cluster. And of course, this is not my evening. The first run failed. So this is still running. Let's see why. Well, let's hope this one will still finish. But then let's go back to my other cluster and log in. As Otomi admin user. So I already showed that everything in Autome is based on configuration as code. And you can see that here also in the charts folder. So here you can see all the underlying charts that are being used. And if you click on the configuration of like Istio, you will not see any configuration because it is configured using the value schema of Autome. So you can see that on GitHub. If I go to GitHub in the Otomi core repository, you will see there's a value schema, and that contains all these supported configuration options in Otomi that you can use. But you can also, as I probably already mentioned, you can do overrides of the underlying chart values because we install or configure all the applications based on the same defaults for the most common use cases. But if you have like a more exotic use case with a lot of microservices, you will need to zit aan de knoppen. Do some more custom configuration, resource tuning. That is something you can directly do within these values. And you don't have to do it directly here in Git, because you can also use the Otomi CLI and just pull or clone the repository and then work locally with the Otomi CLI with also Visual Studio Code integration and auto-completion, and work on your configuration engine. Just say on using the Otomi CLI, Otomi apply, and then it will automatically synchronize. But there you can also do testing and debugging on the configuration. Hey, still success. So the Otomi installer, I don't know what happened, probably a glitch in the API that sometimes happens when installing on AKS without SLA. But here you'll see that in the end of the installer, it says, okay, you can access the Otomi Console using this URL, and you can create users in Keycloak using this URL. So let's go and do that. And now I think we're running out of time, so I won't install the CA on my laptop. But do this. I think the password was welcome 22. Yes, and now I can create a user. I'll call it Sander. And I also always need to provide the email address. I'll just do something that doesn't exist. Now I can add myself to the Otomi admin group. Of course, I need to provide a password. And now we can go to the console on the new install. Yeah, because I installed Autome with the minimal values, it generated its own CA. So in the console, I'll show you, you can download the CA and add it to your keychain. So now I'm on the new cluster, and the first thing I need to do now is enable drone. So I need to log in using the default Otomi admin with the password provided during the install. Welcome. And now we can go to drone. Drone will sign in. Yeah, this is okay. Authorize application, these forms, and then activate repository, save changes, and now we're done. And now we can start using the console. So let's create a team called demo. Here you can see I can provide a group mapping. So if you're using an external IDP, you can use your own groups, like in Azure AD groups. Now, by default, it's using the group that it will create during the creation of this team in Keycloak. Here you can see that you can specify where, as a team, you would like to receive your alerts using Slack or Microsoft Teams or even email. You can adjust the resource quota. I'm installing on Azure, so I have the option to also integrate the Azure Monitor to collect metrics of Azure services into my dashboards. And here you can see, as an admin, I can say, okay, this team is allowed to configure Ingress or not, or change the resource quota of their own team, and also download the kube config. I'll just use the defaults, and what is here? Off. This is not selected. And now submit and deploy changes. Okay, this will take, I think, a couple of minutes, because by default, Autome is installed in multi-tenant mode. So what it will do now is it will create a team, but also create a project for that team in Harbor, create a space in Vault, do all the preparations on the networking level with using Istio. and deploy dashboards for the team and Prometheus server. And this will take, well, sometimes just a couple of minutes. And when it's done, then in Keycloak, I can create a user and add that user to the team. And then the team can start using the self-service features. You can see here, I can already select a team. When I go to the apps now, they won't work because it's still setting up everything for the team. How much time do I have, Fabian? Because I'm totally messed up in time because of things going wrong. Am I still here? Oh, 2 minutes. All right. Well, then we just have enough time to see if the team is completely created. But anyway, I hope this shows a little bit of the possibilities of Otomi. And now, as I already said in the beginning, we're now deploying a lot of applications by default, but you can turn off OPA Gatekeeper. You can also turn off Harbor, and that is now all in the values repository. So if I want to turn off Harbor, you can also do it during the install, because there's also just an option in the chart, because all the configuration of all the underlying applications can also be already configured in the installer chart of Otomi itself. So here you'll see Harbor, and it's enabled true. When I say enabled false, it will disable Harbor. And what we're going to do is we're going to make more applications optional. And then by default, the only thing you will get is like the Ingress architecture. And then you can say, hey, I want to use Knative. Okay, then you'll also get Istio. Or you can turn on Prometheus and all the dashboards and all the logging. So we're going to make it more customizable. And where the initial footprint of Otomi is way smaller. And then you can turn on the stuff you would like to use. So I'm still here, and let's see. It's still running because it needs to do a lot of stuff here in the back. Let's see if logging is already. No, it's not ready yet. But anyway, that will come soon. I can show it on the other cluster where you, as a team, can have direct access to the logs of your team applications. So if you're not a member of this team, you cannot see the logs of this team. That is also part of the multi-tenancy setup. Okay, Fabian, Olivia, I'm a little exhausted because of all the things that went wrong. Let's do a Q&A.
Okay, yes, I will show the chat overlay. Thank you, first of all, Sander, so much for your talk. Don't worry about the minor technical issues. We've had them too. We were nervous too. So that's completely normal. We can't control technology. That's how it is. So
no, and when something goes wrong, then a next thing will also go wrong. And that's what happened, because I got confused and forgot something I needed to fill in. And
that's how it usually is. But let's concentrate on the questions. We actually have a question from the audience, and I will display it onto the screen. So the question is, what features are you planning to add to Otomi in the near future?
What we're working on is first, as I already a little bit explained, is we're going to make more stuff optionally. But as I showed, the base configuration of Autome and of all the pre-configured applications is now not visible, you can change it using the values schema, and we're going to bring those configuration options already supported by Otomi also to the front end. So you can, and you already see the configuration buttons on the apps, where you can change the configuration also of apps. So you can turn them on or off and do some default configuration of the app. And there are a lot of things we're working on. So we're also trying to make the pipeline, as I showed, also more visible for the team. With just like in Azure, yeah. So you submit something, you will see a pop-up. Okay, that's now in progress, and then also get like a feedback on the result of the action you submitted. Those are a couple of features that we're working on. Next week, we'll also introduce egress filtering. So as I showed on the service level, you can already configure network policies for the services within the teams and between teams. So that's more of egress policies. Ingress policies, excuse me, within the cluster. And we're also going to add the option to configure egress policies. So there you can say, okay, by default, traffic outside of the cluster is not allowed. And then you need to specify your fully qualified domain names of the sources you want to use outside of the cluster.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. We will post the website of the Otomi project into the chat, so people can also have a look for themselves. Also, there's another question in the chat. I'll also display it onto the screen. How could I configure the services in detail? For example, add more exporters to Prometheus.
Everything that we like drop on the cluster with the pre-configuration is completely open. So like for instance, the policies, we already added a lot of policies that are also integrated into the console. But if you want to use like more policies, you can just add them yourself. The same as on Prometheus. So if you want to create like what is it called? I'm not that expert anymore. But if you want to use like other alert rules or whatever, you can just add them. But then it is you could probably also do something in the Prometheus configuration within Otomi, and otherwise, you need to do it yourself. But then the consequence is that the configuration is lost if you didn't set up your own pipeline. So everything is customizable in the end, but not everything is supported in the value schema, and not everything on the configuration level is supported in the console. But you can use the CLI to do very more advanced configurations. And also, as I said, use the raw values of the underlying charts. So all the values of all the charts that are being used can also be used and configured in the configuration repository. And then you'll have your configuration stored as code. But there are much more possibilities with the configuration, because you can clone the configuration of a cluster. And suppose your cluster runs on AKS and you want to move it over to EKS. Well, then just install Automi with the AWS provider and use the same configuration you used on AKS, and then drop it on that cluster. And then you'll get your complete setup back, including all the teams, all the services, and the and probably some customized configuration of your applications. Because Automi by itself will abstract like the underlying cloud dependencies. So what we try to do is come up with a solution that is a single install on any cloud, where Otomi is completely cloud native. So we're not using any cloud services of the public cloud provider. And then you can use the console to also, because there are a lot of things I didn't show, but you can add additional clusters and then switch between clusters. So you can switch between a cluster in the public cloud to a cluster in the private cloud in on-prem, and have the same user experience and the same configuration.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I think that definitely answered the question. Okay, so I would say we'll come to the end of our meetup. Thank you so much, Sander, again, for your speech. Sorry for the technical issues, but don't worry about that. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. We are having the meetups every 2 months, so there's definitely going to be need for more speakers in the future. So, and other than that, I wish you a very nice evening. Thanks for being here with us today.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.